Hello, Somerville. My name is Ed Halloran, and welcome to the Somerville Labor Show. This is our second segment with Union United and with the Union Square Neighborhood Council. I have Bill Cavellini, Penny Taylor, and Afruza Akthar. Welcome again on the second segment. And the first thing I want to talk about is I think we left off about the CBA and the Community Benefits Agreement with Bill. But I want to ask Penny a question about the PLA.
Sure.
We saw a little bit in that clip what it was at the first show. What does it stand for? The acronym is for?
Sure. So a PLA is a project labor agreement.
Okay.
This type of PLA, as you noted, there's
right.
others.
Got it.
And it's basically a set of rules that govern how work is done in a development. And so that can involve things like workforce hiring goals in terms of local workers, workers of color or women workers. Also the types of regulations that govern the site in terms of oversight, in terms of checking paperwork to make sure everyone's being paid fair wages, in terms of making sure safety standards are being upheld. So it's a document that can, in a community benefits agreement, it can uphold the standards of the community and the expectations around the work done to make sure they're good jobs that are going to the people the community wants to see employed.
So that brings me in to something, because when I went on the website, I looked at a few things. I tried to find out what is it that we're as a community that you're looking for. And some of the things I saw was economic development, housing, green and open space, civic space, parking, transportation. What else do we have here? Mobility, smart city infrastructure, climate change, sustainability, and establish a local entity and long-term body. Now, some of these things I know a little bit about maybe, but can you expand on that a little bit and tell me what it is that what are we looking for here? Why are these things in here? What's the most important? Anybody can fill this question.
Okay, sure. So all the categories that you just listed are issue areas that have arisen over years of community process and public process about what the community, the Union Square neighbors want to see for our community from the developer.
Right.
So there's been lots of conversations organized by lots of different groups, and you can find a summary of all of these asks on the Union Square Neighborhood Council website. So you kind of coalesced everything into a big document with all of the asks.
Right. I've seen that, like I told you before, and that's really well done. There's a lot of information.
It's called the CBA report.
CBA
you can
report.
click on that link and get to locust process, the CAC process, the CBA summits that were run by the Neighborhood Council Working Group, and all of that's been coalesced into one document.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and so really what's going to happen here is that there's going to be a negotiation with the Neighborhood Council, with the developer, and the developer is who, Bill?
Union Square Station Associates, US2.
US2, okay. So would you like to give us a little thought process on the developer and some of the things that were going on early on and where you're at right now, and maybe even talk about a little bit about the negotiations if you can?
Yep. The US2 was selected by the mayor after his appointed committee recommended someone else.
Okay.
Some other developer who had bid on this development, and it was the first choice of the neighborhood group, the CAC that the mayor appointed. He chose not to pick that group.
Okay.
That was the first choice, and instead chose US2. And that was the first disappointment that the neighborhood had in this long process that began in 2013, I guess. But once US2 was picked as a developer, Union United began organizing for some agreement between the developer from Chicago and the neighborhood in terms of priorities that we talked about that came up in the CBA report. And the Union Square Neighborhood Council was formed one of its main functions was to create a CBA, community benefits agreement, with the developer.
Okay.
And we are the designated entity to negotiate with the developer, and we have begun negotiations after an extended period of time leading up to it. And those negotiations began about 3 weeks ago, and
So you're actually in
we
negotiations
are
right
sitting
now.
down with the developer.
That's
and
very
negotiating.
encouraging that you guys are sitting down.
Yeah.
And you don't want to share anything with us right now. You want to keep it.
Well, just to say that the beginning of negotiations have been cordial.
Good.
We're beginning to get into the hard stuff,
Oh, good, good.
and we anticipate some hard bargaining back and forth.
Okay.
We're sharing information because what's out there in public as to what the plans are
Mhm.
is not complete, and some of the details they don't know themselves yet.
Okay, so what I got here, well, here's what I have in my brain, but it's circling around all the time, is that we are like, and if I'm wrong, you're going to tell me, and someone's going to tell me, it's that you are the community watchdog here, basically. And we're looking out for residents in the city of Somerville, or mostly in Union Square, who are very concerned about, like Afruza said, about displacement. And they don't want to get pushed out of here.
And small
Yeah.
businesses too,
And the businesses too. And I think I mentioned that as well,
which
too.
is a big attraction that's created this value.
Right.
I mean, you know, there would be no Fluff Festival, there would be no farmers market unless there were all these ethnic restaurants around Union Square.
That's another
That's
thing.
what attracts
I want to ask Afruza.
that
You hit the nail
diversity.
on the head.
That
I want to ask Afruza
diversity
this question.
that the clubs, the bars, the
We are
music,
concerned about this.
the music, and all of that.
Here's what we're concerned about, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, we're concerned about rich and poor, and nothing in the middle at all. So this square here has always had its diversity over the years. I went to Southern Junior High. I went to Somerville High School. I grew up in this neighborhood 63 years ago. Okay, and I've always remembered it to be like that. So, I mean, it's very important to you as a resident very close in Union Square. Can you give me an idea of like, what are the concerns here that you're seeing? I mean, I would imagine that what's going on right now, you don't want to lose the flavor of the square. I'm serious when I say this, because it's really, it's very important to keep things, keep components of it. What we're really concerned about is like this beautiful building we're in right now, the Somerville, Access TV building. I know there'll be other things. I know we'll be able to see everything. The church will still be there. I get all that. But what are your concerns when it comes to the square changing? Are you very worried about that right now?
Yes, I am. I feel like might be we're gonna lose some of the touched feelings. Because we are losing people
Yes.
who we already lived with, and businesses, as Bill said, small businesses, we already lost some, and then might be more, who knows. All the new people when comes, it doesn't feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And Somerville is, it's diverse, it's very
Yes.
good community. People have love for each other. If you get into a business, I already knew, they know what I want, because we're being here for a pretty long time. And very nice, people are very nice locally.
Mm-hmm.
If I leave my daughter in here and if I have to go somewhere else, I would not worry. She's 13. I would not worry, because I know she knows places and people know her.
It's very difficult to be uprooted. Believe me.
Right.
I think there's a sympathetic ear throughout the community when it comes to things like that, especially when it comes to families who, we're embedded into the neighborhood. And it's something that's very concerning. And I actually commend this group for the hard work that they put in. Coming from me, I don't know, but that's just how I feel, what I've seen so far. You want to say something on that thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in terms of people who are already missing from the square, I quickly think of like the Ruby Rogers Center and kind of some of the services that we had that were supporting
Right.
some of our neighbors that were the most in need. We've already lost, and and I also think a lot about businesses that people just use every day. I think we heard a lot in Properzy Towers of people who they go do scratch tickets at the smoke shop every day and are worried about kind of losing things that are part of their everyday.
Right.
That probably a big developer isn't thinking about. Oh, we want one of these mixed-use retails to be that kind of store.
Right.
So.
Right.
I don't know, interesting thinking about that in terms of both the small businesses, but also everyone who comes to be in the square and engage with these services, that a lot of that will be lost.
I found that when something goes away, it rarely comes back. This is what I've seen, and it's just it goes away, and there's promises that we're going to correct
Well, look at
that.
Davis Square.
Yeah, yeah,
Came
What's
back.
left of the restaurants from the 70s and 80s?
yeah,
Mike's. That's
Yeah.
it.
yeah.
Mike's. That's all that's left.
Statue Park.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not
That's
an
not.
establishment.
That's
a
yeah,
public
it's just,
meeting place,
yeah,
which is
just-
very important.
Yeah, of course.
Just like this plaza right here is
Absolutely.
very important.
Absolutely.
I mean, I go to the farmer's
Very
market
much.
every Saturday.
It's
I love this
fantastic.
place.
Oh, I get it, man.
Yeah, and I
really
walk
do.
from my house with my
Yeah.
wife every Saturday. That's it's open.
So to move on
So
quickly.
So we don't want to lose that.
Right, and I think
so
you have to
It's
let
not
these
just
residents need to know
it's not just
that.
about people losing their homes,
Right.
being priced out. It's not just about people losing their jobs. It's about the character of the square fading away because they can't afford to pay the commercial rents that
So
are
tongue-in-cheek and
escalating dramatically.
tongue-in-cheek and sarcastically, they're going to be people who are going to say, "Look, this is just the way it is, and it's going to happen. It happens everywhere." And I said that in our last segment. And we are, what I understand when I say we, as a group sitting here discussing this, are very concerned about losing that. And I really think it's important. I think it's really important that I want to reach out to the viewers right now and let them know that these people are working very hard to try and preserve this community right now and trying to work with the administration, with a developer. But I have a very important question. This is for me because I'm a labor person, as you know, and I've been doing this for many, many years. And every time I talk to my mother, she's always talking about unions and how important they are and picket lines. My mom is a Teamster from the 1950s and 60s. And I've said this on the show before, and I know I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I have been in picket lines at the age of 4 for Carter's Inc. back in Cambridge. So my mom dragged me there, but ever since then, it's just been something that's pulled me into it. So here's my question. We have the project labor agreement. So the project labor, what I read is that this project will create 1,000 new jobs. Okay, this is what I read. It brings me to ask a question about good paying jobs, union jobs, prevailing wages. Now we've talked about prevailing wages on this job, and I've asked everybody the same thing about prevailing wages, and apprenticeships as well as job priority for Somerville residents first. This is what I'm concerned about as well. Anybody can go here on this one, but what are your thoughts on these issues as far as how do we get good paying jobs in this square, union jobs in the square, because I know it's a heck of a challenge, and apprenticeships, because I think I think, in my opinion, do we have any room to get apprenticeships for people who currently live in the city? I mean, if Afruza wants to work in construction, right? I mean, we'd like to give her an opportunity to do that in this square as a resident of the city of Somerville and give her a first opportunity. How do you feel about that?
If I keep fighting and still stay till that time, you know what I mean? So everyone is in the same path now.
Right.
Are we
right.
gonna stay here until that time?
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, so I think there are two areas of jobs to think about this in relation to, and one is the construction, kind of during the creation of these spaces and these buildings that will hold businesses, and then the people who actually have the jobs in those businesses and what their rights are as workers.
Permanent jobs.
And permanent jobs, kind of after
Absolutely.
the construction. And so with each, there are kind of different things you can do to best build in that the jobs will be, the people will have the right to organize free and fair elections and have all of the protections that union labor can provide. And so, I mean, some of them are in thinking through a project labor agreement kind of laying out the expectations of the community. But then some are other types of partnerships that need to happen concurrently. Like you were talking about apprenticeships. So, connecting the unions like carpenters and building trades in with apprenticeship programs at the high school, jobs programs in the city, and making sure that there is a feedback loop, right?
They have a trade school.
Yeah.
You know?
And those trades, I know they see all the work but in town, but I also know that the members are suffering displacement as well. I mean, even one thing that helps offset raising rents are good quality jobs, but at the rate the rents are rising here, even union members can't afford to stay in Somerville.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
So you see the map having fewer and fewer dots by the
It's
year.
unbelievable.
So.
It's really unbelievable. It's like we're underpaid, undervalued, and no matter how much lip service someone gives you, you feel underappreciated no matter what, because respect comes through monetary benefits.
So good jobs in construction comes through a PLA, a project labor agreement.
Yes.
Good jobs on the permanent jobs comes with a CBA, with an agreement with the developer that he will require in his leases with his tenants, meaning the retail tenants, the life science building tenants, that there will be local hire, that there'll be hiring of women and minorities in the numbers that are represented in the general population of Somerville, and that they will pay a living wage.
And a living wage is what, Bill, for the 20th time? Because I
I'm
ask.
not the best person to answer
Well,
that.
I mean, when we talk about,
Penny can
how about
answer
living
that.
wage, prevailing wage? Let's talk about prevailing wage.
Sure. So this isn't technically a public project, so prevailing wage laws don't apply, which then kind of puts all the more pressure on getting a strong project labor agreement to make sure that people are being fairly compensated for their work.
Okay. So basically, it's like a union scale wage. I'm not saying that if they can't get union, we want them to, hopefully it's unions, because with unions there's a lot of good things that come with unions, and unions are having a lot of trouble out there right now, as they always have over the years, and we're looking for that respect. So here's what I want to do. I want to get into the affordable housing part of this again. I'm going around a little bit of a circle. I apologize for that. So it's projected that 40% of this development will be residential housing. 20% is the affordable housing, is the inclusionary zoning, which will be affordable.
20% of the number of units, and they're going to build about 1,000 units.
20% will be affordable. Okay. So are the affordable units that will be built, are they just rentals? Would you guys happen to know anything about that at all?
So far, they've indicated that they are going to do just rentals.
Okay, so my next question, would there be any opportunity to own at all? But I guess that question is right now.
It doesn't look like there is at this point, but
all right.
They, again, next week, we're going to be negotiating around housing, affordable housing.
Yeah.
And what's one of our first questions.
Can I ask you guys a question? Can I ask a question about affordable housing? Because this really strikes me. I don't even know what affordable housing is anymore in the city of Somerville because the economy is so steep here. So moderate income people. Now, I could probably get in the ballpark of moderate income of maybe two people making $70,000, $80,000 or something like that, maybe, possibly, who knows? I don't really know.
Today,
but my concern is that
closer to 80 or 90.
All right, but is moderate income, moderate housing? It's a brain teaser, all right. But is it affordable? What's affordable housing? Where's the ceiling? We don't even know now. I mean, I don't.
It's answered specifically in the ordinance for inclusionary zoning in the city, and it's 50% of average median income for the metropolitan Boston area. Is the low, and the 110 is the high. So
okay, so there's a scale.
It's a scale
that people that you can follow. Got it.
So, but when we sit down with US2, we're going to be talking about what's called workforce housing, which goes from like roughly 80% of area median income to 130%.
Okay.
And so it's 20% more than the low and moderate. And we'll be talking about that kind of housing too. And I think that covers a lot of municipal workers. in that
Well,
category.
I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. I'm going to tell you why. Because I am going to have somebody on the show that's going to talk about a trust fund for municipal workers. Municipal workers are unable to live in the city, and it continues. And we're just being, I mean, we're hiring people from out of state. And sometimes people are actually going to Brockton down south to try and to get, and they're traveling, so many miles. They're spending so much time. Their quality of life is just, really the family thing is just not working out for them. So we're hoping, I know the alderman did put that out there. In fact, Bob McWaters, former alderman, did have that out there, and I appreciate what he did to get that out there for us. And I know that the current Board of Aldermen is also sponsoring that right now to try and get something done to help us to stay in the city, because this is where we grew up, this is where we want to stay. And I appreciate you bringing that up.
Multiple tools need to be used to help make that happen. Not just the trust fund, because if you got all the money that you'd need,
right.
you wouldn't. That trust fund would have to be very big. So, if we can get some workforce housing in this process, and then you have the trust fund as well to help with the down payments.
Well, how about okay? Well, how about this?
And the closing costs.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
How about this? I've got some members that make well below what people should be earning, okay? And they definitely qualify for affordable housing, no doubt about it. So that would be something that we would be interested in having them have the ability to live in the city and not be displaced and leave the city. I mean, under $40,000 is unacceptable. It's difficult to live on that. It really is, especially if you have a young child. You might be a single mom or anything like that. So I want to be timely here. I want to move as quickly as I can. So I got to stay in affordable housing for 1 second and unions, okay? So it's been said that affordable housing cannot be built by unions because it's alleged to be too expensive to hire union labor, and certainly we all believe that prevailing wages should be paid on these public projects. Does anybody you want to chime in on whether or not you may not be the right person to ask this question, but I'm just going to ask anyway? Can affordable housing be built by the union trades affordably?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you know
why?
That, you know that why?
One answer is because the unions provide a different scale for contractors, developers who are building affordable housing, and they present that they will accept a lower hourly figure for projects that are completely affordable.
Well, that's good. We want to hear that. Now we're getting. I got about 5 minutes left in the show. So another question I have about the Union United and USNC. Okay, another acronym. Here we go again. What are you guys most concerned about in this project? Is there one vital thing? I'll go right to each one of you and give me like 30 seconds, if you can. I know it's hard because we're running short on time. But what's the most? What's the thing, Penny? What's the thing you're most concerned about? Then we'll go to Bill and Afruza.
The thing I'm most concerned about? Well, a lot of things jump to mind right away. I quickly think of what happened in Assembly Square as far as labor and wanting to be proud of what's built in our neighborhood and how it's built. So to me, the labor standards and the project labor agreement are really important. Affordable housing is what I heard knocking the doors the most concerned about.
Yeah.
But also a lot about traffic and parking. I've been thinking a lot recently about the environment and kind of the impact this development will have and how we can plan for the future and really have a smart project that that plans ahead, that brings people together, is less divisive. Yeah.
Afruza, what do you think about what's the most important thing to you? One, just give me if you can give me one, and what do you got?
First thing comes in my mind is the affordable housing. Housing, we can see some build housing in here, but they're not affordable. So we can stay in here.
So it's the whole displacement thing for you is that's your bottom line, and that's what you're sticking to it, and I like that. I think that's really. Bill, can you sum it up for us in about?
I would just say having higher paying jobs and more affordable housing up front.
Okay.
So we address the problem that we know is coming, that's already in the pipeline of displacement of long-term Somerville residents.
Perfect. And Penny?
So the city at one point commissioned a study. I think it's the Nexus study. I mixed it up with all the
Nobody
names
knows what
of.
Nexus is, except for the
So it's
people in the know.
a study to actually look at the specific numbers of the displacement that this development will cause. And the city commissioned it, and it gave us a number to work towards, because that is the tipping point of displacement. I mean, you can imagine it as that.
Okay.
And so some is covered in community contributions in terms of like affordable, 21% affordable housing and contributions to job training. But covering that gap and that number through community benefits, whether it's affordable housing or fighting for better paying jobs or for local businesses, that to me is the biggest thing, which isn't like a specific ask, but it's like that's the gap we're faced with. So covering that.
So we're just scratching the surface here. Okay, that's all we're doing. Just so we can get it out to the people. It's gonna build, and it's gonna. So much is going to be happening here, and we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep talking about this, and periodically, we'd like to ask you guys to come back in if you'd agree to do it. I haven't talked about the public safety building because that's a hot button issue. We all know that the public safety building, it's relocation, and you touched on a community center building. That's very, very important. So as we come to the close of this part two. I'm very excited about this whole thing. And remember Paul Harvey?
Yeah.
You do?
My father used to listen to
That's
him.
because you're an old
I'm
gentleman like
75
me.
years old.
All right, so Paul Harvey said, we're going to give you the rest of the story. I can't do it as well as he did. But we are going to do that. And that's going to continue to go on. So hold on for a second because I have to thank some people. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Scout Magazine for covering the many facts and some of the things that I discussed today on the show. Neighborhood News for its ongoing exceptional coverage of the redevelopment and Union United and the Neighborhood Council because they did some good things in that video. I also want to thank Somerville Stands Together because Somerville Stands Together it's rising. They're doing excellent work right now, and it's really a coalition that I have. Many of us probably have envisioned here, and I think I think many people are onto it. I must thank everyone at this station here, Somerville Access Community Television, for giving me the opportunity to have this show. It's an honor to host it, by the way. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I'm glad I did. Erica Jones, David Ortega, the great Joe Lynch of Greater Somerville. I want to thank him. Jason and Crystal at the front desk. Andrew, who has been here, he also does a great job in the studio. And I have to thank, you can't see him, you can't see Jude, but Jude is here, Jude Sylvain. Last but not least, I must thank him. We work together at the City of Somerville, at the Department of Public Works. He's our technical assistant. He's a great gentleman. He has a lot of patience. He also edits the show, and it's also available on YouTube. So please tune in. You can watch this anytime you want. Afruza, did you have something in closing you wanted to add?
Yes,
Go right ahead.
I'd like to thank the community's people when they came out in a cold, shivering night to vote me and my colleague, board members. Whoever vote for me and whoever not vote for me, equally thank for each of them because they think about the community, what's going on. They're now awake. So it's a plus point, and I can thank enough, and I still can't believe that I'm on the board.
With that said so eloquently, we are going to give you a free shirt, T-shirt. This is only in Somerville, and you can leave it up to the imagination here because there's many definitions and whatever. But Bill, wear it proudly with the SMEA logo on it. Okay, appreciate that. Penny, this is a parting gift. This is what we call these now. Okay. This is your shirt.
Thank you.
Penny Taylor, Afruza. When I go to the new cafe and I order one of my sandwiches or my smoothies, you can't wear this, but what the heck. But this is your shirt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, hey,
Thank you.
look, there's there you go. All right, some stickers. Talk about, what are we doing here with these, Somerville Stands Together. If anybody wants them, we got them. But I want to thank you guys very much for being on the show. And I also want to thank our viewers for watching. Next week, or in the future episodes, we're going to piggyback off of this. You're going to see that we're going to really build this up, and you're going to see what's going on out here. And I want to thank you all very much once again. And remember, in unity there is strength. Peace.